Breaking news. Ukrainian FPVs tear apart Russian TOS-1A, January 30th, 2026. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I am Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest deep dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments, and today. Today we're going to cover a catastrophic explosion that is shaking up the entire Zaporizhia front. We are talking about the total obliteration of a Russian TOS-1A Solntsepyok, their heavy flamethrower system, and, well, the chaotic aftermath that followed.
It is a huge development, Alex, and it's one of those moments that just perfectly encapsulates the current state of this war. What makes this so compelling isn't just the explosion itself, though, as we'll see, the visuals are just absolutely terrifying. It's the David versus Goliath reality of it all. We're looking at a weapon system that costs, what, up to $15 million?
A weapon designed to level city blocks, incinerate bunkers.
And it's being taken out in seconds.
In seconds, by a piece of plastic and some circuitry that's worth maybe $400. It really feels like the entire script has been flipped. You have this massive, terrifying machine, the pride of the Russian military. And it's basically just becoming a death trap for its own crews. We're going to unpack the new tactics Ukrainian drone operators are using, specifically these vampire drone teams, and why this weapon, despite being a nightmare on the battlefield, is actually one of the most vulnerable assets Russia has. It's a story of ingenuity versus brute force. But first, let's just step back for a second. For those who haven't seen the footage, what are we dealing with here? They call it a heavy flamethrower, which sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It really does sound like sci-fi, I'll give you that. But the reality is much grimmer and much more kinetic.
Not the kind you see in old war movies, I take it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The TOS-1A Solntsepyok, which, by the way, translates to scorching sun, isn't a flamethrower in that sense. It's actually a thermobaric multiple rocket launcher, and it's mounted on a T-72 tank chassis. On top, you've got this big, boxy launcher that carries 24 of these massive rockets.
Okay, thermobaric. That's the jargon we hear all the time. But let's really drill down into what that means. How is it different from a normal bomb? Why is it so much more feared?
This is the crucial distinction. A standard explosive, it has its own oxidizer, it creates a blast, throws out shrapnel.
Right, the shrapnel does the killing.
Exactly. A thermobaric weapon is a two-stage event. When one of these rockets hits, the first small charge bursts the casing and just disperses this massive cloud of fuel, like a fine aerosol, into the air.
So it turns the atmosphere into the bomb?
That's a perfect way to put it. For a split second, that cloud mixes with the oxygen in the air. Then a secondary charge ignites it. And because it uses the atmospheric oxygen, the fireball it's incredibly intense. And it lasts much longer than a normal explosion. We're talking about temperatures around 3,000 degrees Celsius.
3,000 degrees? That's hotter than the melting point of steel.
It vaporizes almost everything. But the heat isn't even the deadliest part for people who are in cover. It's the pressure. When that fireball consumes all the oxygen in the area, it creates a vacuum. You get this massive overpressure wave followed by a negative pressure phase, a suction.
Sure, if you're in a bunker.
It doesn't matter. The fuel cloud flows like a liquid. It goes around corners, into caves, down ventilation shafts, and then it detonates. The pressure difference alone is strong enough to rupture internal organs, collapse lungs. It's designed specifically to kill people in fortifications where normal artillery might just bounce off the roof. A single salvo covers an area of 200 by 400 meters.
It's a terror weapon, plain and simple.
It is.
That is a horrifying picture. So you have this weapon that can wipe out a grid square, turn bunkers into tombs. It's on a tank chassis, so it looks tough.
Yeah.
So why are we seeing them explode so often? I mean, video after video, these things are just going up in smoke.
And that is where you find its fatal design flaw. Physics is a harsh mistress, right? To get that huge thermobaric effect, the rockets have to be massive. And they're filled with this liquid fuel, which makes them incredibly heavy. All of that limits their range significantly. The TOS-1A has a maximum firing range of only about 6 kilometers.
Wait. 6 kilometers in a war where we talk about missiles hitting targets hundreds of miles away.
Just 6 kilometers. Yeah. Compare that to a U.S.-made HIMARS, which can shoot 70 kilometers or more.
Or even just regular artillery.
Exactly. Standard 155-millimeter artillery can hit 20-30 kilometers out.
So 6 kilometers is basically point-blank range in modern warfare.
It is. To use this thing, the Russian crew has to drive it right up to the front line. They have to enter what we call the death zone. They aren't sitting comfortably in the rear. They're well within range of Ukrainian FPV drones, anti-tank missiles,
Yeah.
even mortars.
They have to expose themselves just to get a shot off.
And that is exactly what the Ukrainian defenders are waiting for.
Which brings us directly to this breaking news from today, January 30th. The Security Service of Ukraine, the SSU, they just released details on a strike in the Zaporizhia region that, well, it perfectly illustrates this. What happened?
This was just a textbook intercept of a high-value target. According to the SSU, this TOS-1A was moving into a firing position. And crucially, it was fully loaded.
Ready to fire.
Ready to fire. It was moving at night, trying to use the darkness for cover, which is pretty standard procedure for them now. They know the skies are watching during the day.
But hiding in the dark just doesn't work like it used to, does it? I feel like the whole concept of the cover of darkness is just disappearing.
It's gone. Especially not against the SSU and their drone units. They were using attack drones that were equipped with high-resolution thermal imagers. You have to remember, this thing is built on a T-72 chassis. It has a massive diesel engine. Even if they turn the engine off, that huge metal block holds heat for hours.
So on a cool night, it just glows.
It glows like a Christmas tree on a thermal scope. The operator spots this hot object moving in the dark, overtakes the system, and maneuvers to hit the launcher while it's charged. And that's the critical part.
Hitting it while it's loaded.
Because all those rockets are just sitting right there on top, exposed. The armor on the launcher box itself is pretty thin, for weight reasons.
And when the drone hit,
it triggered the fuel inside all 24 of those rockets. The secondary detonation was catastrophic.
Yeah.
The SSU statement actually called it a bright fireworks display.
Fireworks display? That sounds like a bit of an understatement.
It really is. I mean, when those rockets cook off inside the vehicle, there's zero chance for the crew. The report says the crew disappeared along with the system. It wasn't just disabled, it was vaporized.
Incredible. And the precision required. But I want to pivot to the numbers here, because when you look at the economics of this war, this strike just feels like a massive win on the balance sheet alone. We talk about asymmetric warfare. What does that look like in dollars and cents here?
This is the definition of asymmetry. Let's just look at the price tags. A TOS-1A system, it's not just the vehicle. It's the firing computer, the hydraulics. Estimates put a full system, especially when you factor in the loader vehicles and the training, somewhere between $6.5 and $15 million.
A very high-value asset.
Extremely. And the drone that destroyed it.
What, a few $100?
Likely between $400 and $1,000, depending on the camera.
So if I'm doing my math right, that is a staggering return on investment.
It's roughly 15,000 to 1.
Yeah.
For every single dollar Ukraine spent on that drone, Russia lost $15,000 in equipment.
That's economically unsustainable.
You can't fight a long war like that. No economy can sustain that kind of burn rate, especially not one under sanctions.
And it's not like they have thousands of these just sitting around, right? I mean, this isn't like an old T-72.
That's the other critical factor, scarcity. The TOS-1A is a specialized piece of kit. Pre-war estimates put their total inventory at around 150 units. Total.
150. For their entire military. That's a tiny fleet for a front line this long.
It's a drop in the ocean. And if you look at the data from a source like Oryx, which only counts visually confirmed losses, Russia has already lost over 35 of these systems.
35, so that's almost a quarter of their entire pre-war fleet. Just gone.
Gone. And you can't just ramp up production on something this specialized overnight. Losing one of these is a real strategic blow.
It just highlights the shift we're seeing. The hunter has become the hunted. And speaking of hunters, how is Ukraine pulling this off? I mean, it's not just guys strapping grenades to hobby drones anymore, is it?
No. That era is long over. It has become a standardized, almost industrial effort. In the early days, yeah, we saw a lot of that MacGyvering, duct tape and 3D printed parts. But now you have Ukrainian manufacturers like Ukrainian Armor producing standardized munitions specifically for drones.
So these are factory-made, aerodynamic.
Exactly. They're making 82 millimeters and 120 millimeter anti-armor rounds. They have fins for stability, proper impact fuses. They are maximizing the lethality. And the units using them have become incredibly specialized. We need to give a shout out to units like Lazar's group, who've hit several of these in the Lyman direction, and the Nemesis Regiment. These crews aren't just looking for targets of opportunity. They are actively hunting high-value targets.
And I've heard a lot about the vampire drones, or what the Russians call Baba Yaga. The name alone tells you how much they fear these things. How do they fit in?
The Vampire is a heavy bomber drone. It's a big hexacopter, much bigger than little FPVs. It's loud, operates at night, and the tactic is just brutal and effective. A vampire will fly over and drop a heavy anti-tank mine or similar munition just to track or immobilize the vehicle.
So they don't go for the kill shot right away. They just want to stop it from moving.
Right. They cripple it first, blow a track off, damage the engine. Once the TOS-1A is immobilized, it's a sitting duck. It can't run. Then, once it's stuck, swarms of the smaller, faster FPV drones come in to hit the weak points like the ammo storage to trigger that massive detonation we saw. It's a coordinated multi-stage kill chain.
Like a pack of wolves taking down a bison. Hamstring it first, then finish it. But surely Russia is trying to adapt. We've seen those bizarre turtle tanks and the cages they weld onto everything.
They are trying, but it's largely ineffective against a skilled operator. There was a famous strike by the Signum unit where the pilot flew the FPV drone right into the so-called cope cage.
And the cage didn't stop it.
Not at all. A shaped charge creates this hypersonic jet of metal that punches through armor. The drone hit the cage, the warhead detonated, and that jet went right through the grill, through the launcher's thin skin, and ignited the rockets. The cage did nothing.
It's just psychological comfort then.
That's all it is, and sometimes it just makes it harder for the crew to escape.
So let's connect this to the bigger picture. We're seeing these individual strikes, but what's the cumulative effect on the front line in 2026?
It changes everything about how Russia conducts an offense. The TOS-1A was their breakthrough weapon. That was its job. When they wanted to crack a fortified line, they'd send in the Solntsepyok to burn it out, suppress the defenders, and then send in the tanks and infantry.
But if they can't get it to the front line...
Exactly. If they can't bring these systems within that 6-kilometer range without them getting vaporized, they lose that capability. The battlefield, especially the first 15 kilometers, has become what we call transparent.
Transparent, that's a fascinating way to put it.
Between reconnaissance drones, thermal cams, sensors, nothing large can move unnoticed.
Yeah.
You can't hide a 46-ton tank. So Russia is forced to change tactics.
And is this why we're hearing their advance has slowed to a crawl?
Precisely. They're stuck moving at a foot pace. In some sectors, advances are measured in just a few square kilometers a day. Without the fire support from the TOS-1A, they have to rely on less effective artillery.
Or the meat waves.
The grim reality, yes. They have to send wave after wave of soldiers to storm trenches. By hunting down these specific machines, Ukraine is forcing Russia to fight a slower, bloodier, less effective war.
So the destruction of these 35 units has a direct correlation to the infantry casualty rates we're seeing. That's a massive strategic impact for a $500 drone.
That's the leverage of asymmetric tech. And we know Russia is desperate. They know the TOS-1A is a death trap. They're trying to develop the TOS-2, which is wheeled, and the TOS-3 Dragon.
What's the goal with those? Just make them faster.
Range and mobility. They're desperately trying to increase the firing range to stay out of that FPV drone radius, push it to 15, 20 kilometers.
But those are new systems. That takes time.
A lot of time. And industrial capacity. In the meantime, they're forced to use the older TOS-1As, and as we saw today, those are just getting hammered. It's a legacy weapon in a modern war that has made it obsolete.
It's a race against time and technology. Russia's trying to build a longer stick, while Ukraine is just getting more precise with the stones they're throwing.
And the stones are getting smarter every day. The Ukrainian drone corps is evolving faster than the Russian military can adapt.
It really brings up a provocative thought for the future of warfare. I mean, we all grew up thinking of tanks and heavy armor as the kings of the battlefield. But if a $15 million system can be erased by a cheap swarm in seconds, is the era of heavy armored vehicles in close combat just over?
That is the question every military strategist from the Pentagon to Beijing is asking right now. If you can't protect a heavy asset from a cheap swarm, does it even make sense to build them? We might be witnessing the end of the tank era, at least as we know it, in real time. The cost-benefit analysis just doesn't compute anymore.
It's a terrifying and fascinating time. The scorching sun is being extinguished by the vampire. It sounds like something out of a myth, but we're watching it happen right on our screens.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The battlefield has changed forever.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.